Hey everybody. So today we're going to take a look at color correcting some stock footage. We cut a weather spot for our station that was about 80% stock footage, and this shot came from the stock footage house. I have no idea what camera they used. I have no idea what codec they used. You kind of get whatever it is they have on their website, and you have to make the shot work. And as you can see by my stills, it took a long time to get this shot where I needed it. Let me turn that off so we can see it a little better. If you look at the scopes, obviously it's very yellow. Let me blow that up. The color is very muted. And because I live in New England, it snows a lot. And this promo I was doing is about snow. So this is the perfect shot. A mom getting a little girl dressed up to go out in the snow. However, the color palette was completely wrong. I wanted a little more colorful, a little more realistic looking shot. So this is what I downloaded from the stock footage house. Very yellow. Blacks are lifted, whites are kind of not that bright. And with a shot like this, I'll call it playing golf. I just want to get the shot a little closer with each node. You're probably not going to color correct this or balance this or grade this with one or two nodes. This is going to be a process. The first thing I'll do is I'll bring down my blacks a little bit, bring down my highlights a little bit, so it made it more yellow, which may seem bad initially, but what I'm trying to do is just get this thing on planet Earth. So I'm going to move my gammas towards blue and my gain towards blue to get some of that yellow out. And I've moved my lift up towards red, trying to get that black down there. And what I've done is I've stretched out the blob here. Again, this is magnified 2 times. I'm stretching out the blob, getting it more in the middle and giving it a little more contrast. Bring the gain down a little bit. Yeah, a little bit more in the gain. Bring my gamma towards blue a little bit more. A little too much green in that gamma. I'm going to bring that up. So I've put some blue into my gammas, put some blue into the gain, brought down the lift, brought down the gain. And I'm looking at this picture, and now it kind of looks like a log picture, like it was shot log. It's pretty flat. So when stuff's this out of whack, I'm just trying to get it close. So what I'm going to do here is I'm looking at my blob, could probably swing a bit to the right, and sometimes you need a heavy hand with this, so I'm just going to spin my hue knob to the right. My blob is now in the middle, but now it's going in a nice direction. I've got my skin tone indicator on right here, and when I don't know what to do with a shot, I try to have my blob start looking like this, about 11 o'clock to 4 o'clock. Just so I can get started. And of course, the picture looks a little flat, so I'm going to bring up the saturation by increasing the saturation. Yeah, put it about there. Yeah, maybe a little more. So now I'm looking at the scopes, and we've got too much blue in there. So I'm going to try to push my gain up towards red, get rid of some of that blue on the high end. There we go. That's where I started. There's absolutely no blue or cyan in that picture at all. That's node 1. Again, it's still not looking very good, but we're getting it closer to planet Earth, which is all we wanted to do with the first node. So I'm going to add another node, and I'm looking at my scopes. I'm going to crush my blacks a little bit more. There we go. And bring up my gain. By doing that, I'll put some more contrast and a little more snap in the picture. And I'm going to bring up my color boost at about there, maybe a little more. Highlights a little too hot, bring them down. And I've still got some blue in that picture. You can see it right here. I bring down my gain a little bit. Push the gain towards green a little bit. Give it a little more gain. A little less blacks. And now we're getting somewhere. So again, we've come from this to this in 2 nodes. A lot of that yellow is gone. Some blue is back in that picture. The blue is back in her jeans. We're getting some cyan back in that floor, which really didn't exist at all in the picture that I downloaded from the stock house. All right, so I'm looking at the picture now. Let me get this out of the way. And it still feels kind of yellowy, maybe a little too much green in that picture. So I'm going to come into hue versus sat, pick a yellow and a green point. And again, this is where we started from, which was very, very yellow. I got rid of a lot of that yellow in these first 2 nodes, but there's still some hanging around that's bothering me. So I'm going to turn on node 3, and I'm just going to bring down the yellow a little bit and bring down some green. And you can see what it's doing on the scope. That's off. This is on. It's bringing that yellow in a little closer. It's getting rid of some of that yellow spill. So you can see off, a lot of yellow, some green in there, on. It's hard to see it. You can kind of see it here, off, on, off, on, off. on, sucking some of that yellow out. And this wall over here, that's on, off, on, off, on. And you can really see it in the scopes. That's off. You can see the red, green, and the blue are pretty far apart. When I turn it on, they get a little bit closer together, which means this part of the picture and this part of the picture is closer to white. I'm looking at this picture, and we've got some magenta. You can see the blob is kind of pushing towards magenta. So I'm going to turn my magenta on, just bring that down a little bit, and you can see what it's doing right here. Kind of bringing that magenta out of the picture, getting rid of any magenta cast in that picture. So that's off, on, off, on. You can see in the walls, off, kind of little magenta-y, on. What this node is doing is making the colors a little tighter. It's getting rid of the extremes, the extreme yellow, the extreme green, the extreme magenta. So I took another look at this picture and decided there was a little too much blue in it as well. I'm going to bring down that blue, and you can see it move on the scopes. We're getting a tighter picture. Off, on. You can see her blue jeans. If I leave it on, a little too blue, a little nuclear, turn that off. Just tightens up the blue in that picture. And now I can start to fine-tune the exposure a little bit. I'm looking at the scopes. I could probably bring up the highlights a little bit more. And this in here is a little muddy. I could move my lift, but sometimes that's a bit clunky. So I'm just going to go into my curves here. And on the low end, just bring them up a little bit. So that's off, little dark, little too crunchy, on. Getting some detail back in here, and we're brightening up the image overall by increasing our gain. And I'm looking back at the scopes, and red kind of creeped in, so in my gamma and gain, I'm just going to bring down my red a little bit. Take out some of that red. Now this is what I mean when I say playing golf. I'm 4 nodes in, and the picture is looking a lot better, but it took 4 nodes to do it. So these walls are looking a little green, a little weird. What I'm going to do is pull a qualifier key, look at the matte channel. What I'm trying to do is get these walls a little whiter. They're still kind of a little greenish and a little bluish. Not looking so good. This adds to the selection. Too much. Sometimes you got to play with it. So I've got a good part of the wall, which is nice, but I've also got some staircase and some of this checkered floor, which I don't want, which is easy enough to get rid of. Just draw some shapes around that. And I'll draw another one for the stairs. I want to keep the stairs yellowy-ish. It's got that nice wood pattern to it. If I take too much yellow out of here, it's going to make the stairs look weird. So I can come in, draw another curve. And while I'm at it, I'll get rid of all their flesh tones in their hair too. I don't want to key any of the girls. Put that on. Blur it a little bit. And all I'm going to do is bring my saturation down. So it's just affecting these walls. So this node is getting rid of some of the colors in the walls that are a little weird. Some of the yellow and the green up there, that's on. Getting rid of some of the weird color up here. Off, a little blue, a little weird. Back on, wall looks whiter. Subtle adjustment, but I think it really helps. You're going to always want to play this when you do a key like this to make sure there's no weirdness on the edges of where your key is. I'm looking over here in the door. If you look in the matte channel, you can also play the matte channel. I don't see any boiling edges. I don't see any weirdness. I don't see any of the girl's skin coming through. It looks like a pretty clean key. It just took some of the weird color out of the wall. So after that node, I'll bring my gain down a little bit, bring my lift up a little bit. I want to see some more details in her pants, and I want to see some more detail in the highlights. So gain up, lift down. This is going to seem a little counterintuitive, but after looking at the picture, I decided maybe I want to put some of those yellows and greens back in. And you're going to say, well, we just took them out in a previous node, but yeah, now I want to put them back in. And this is part of color correction. You change your mind and you kind of go with what feels right. When you fix something in one node, it might break it in another. So let's bring up yellow a little bit, warm it up, put some green back in. The green's going to go back into these plants. And I'll put a little blue back in the picture to cool it off. Off, on, off, on. You can see a little more detail down here. The blue in her pants is now coming out a little bit more. The yellows in the floor are a little bit more pronounced. The yellow of the door is a little bit more pronounced. That's just part of color correction. Sometimes you take color out and then you realize, you know what? I think I want to put it back in. So we're getting a little closer here. I'm going to put another node on and I'm going to bring up my color boost. By using color boost, it seems to give the shot a more natural color look than just increasing saturation. So it's increasing the colors in that picture, but just the colors we kind of like. We've knocked out all the colors we don't like, in the previous nodes. Maybe that's a little too much. Bring that down a little bit. There we go, a little better. So if we look at the original shot, which was this, and that's what I've gotten into so far, the art director really liked this cyan blue of these tiles, and she wanted them to punch out a lot more, which is no problem for the resolve. I'm just going to add a node, select my keyer, zoom into the blue squares, select one. Now we've got a lot of magenta in there. See if you can adjust that by using the low and the high slider. Whoops. Get rid of some of those whites. Try to clean black. That's not helping. Clean white. Helping a little bit. Blur never hurts. What I can do is push my gamma and my gain down towards cyan. Now those tiles are really popping off that floor. Maybe a little too much. Bring it back a little bit. You have a nice contrast now with these yellow tiles and these bright cyan blue squares. Again, I'll play it down just to make sure. Not too bad. We got some stuff up here. Let me see if I can mask that out. And I can. So our blue tiles are now kind of popping nicely off the floor. That's what they shot, and that's what we've turned it into so far. Wow, I sure can't talk about color correction, huh? This video is a little too long. I wanted to do it in one, but it took two. I had a lot to say. So this will be the end of part one, and you can click right here for part two. I hope you guys clicked part two. I hope this helped so far, and happy correcting, everybody.